the savage and murderous attacks it started off with Bakhtiyar Khilji, which led to the destruction of Buddhist viharas, Hindu mandirs, and the horrific murders of tens of thousands of Hindus and Buddhists, the forcible conversion to Islam, the rape, the pillaging, and the decline of with the imposition of Islam. These have been well chronicled not only by travelers to Bengal of those times, but also by the sultans of Delhi. I must mention here that the sultans of Delhi, like, they believed in the Hanafi school of Islamic law, which held that the non-Muslims are to be regarded as dhimmis who have to pay jizya and subject themselves to many discriminations, injustices, and insults in return for being allowed to live. That is, to not to be put to death. Peter Jackson, in his book The Delhi Sultanate: A Political and Military History, notes that the sultans of Delhi treated Hindus with utter disdain. And in his words, which he quotes from the texts of those times, the sultans regarded Hindus as never interesting, I'm putting this in quotes, never interesting in themselves, but only as converts, as capitation taxpayers, or as corpses. The sultans considered it their duty to advance Islamic faith, eradicate infidelity and paganism, and to humiliate the Hindus. That is what led the persecution of Hindus started off, Bengali Hindus started off from there. Then came the tyrannical ruler Alauddin Khalji of the infamous Khalji dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate, who introduced many discriminatory practices, one in Bengal, one of which was the creation of markets called the Shahana-e Mandi, where only Muslim merchants were allowed to carry out transactions, and they had the exclusive permits to trade. Violators were persecuted or punished with amputations. These and various other measures favoring Muslims and led to the conversion of huge number of Hindus to Islam during the phase of the Delhi Sultanate, when Delhi Sultans ruled over Bengal from 1204 to 1352 Common Era. From 1352 till the 16th century, we had the Bengal Sultanate, which reached its peak in the early 16th century. Coming back to the Delhi Sultanate, I must mention that Bakhtiyar Khilji attacked Gaur multiple times between 1202 and 1204 during the reign of Muhammad Ghori, and that was the time it is estimated that 1 million Bengali Hindus were either killed and 2 million were forcibly converted to Islam. Now, going on in history, in 1352, Ilyas Shah defeated the sultans of Gaur, Sonargram, and Sadgaon, unified the deltas of the Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Meghna rivers into the Bengal Sultanate. He was a staunch Islamic fundamentalist and attacked, looted, pillaged neighboring Hindu principalities, including the king of Nepal, and massacred Hindus, forcibly converting tens of thousands to Islam. Ilyas Shah then founded the Indo-Turkic Ilyas Shahi dynasty, which ruled Bengal for many decades, for the next 15 decades. His son and successor, Sikandar Shah, defeated the Firoz Shah Tughlaq of the Tughlaq dynasty in 1359, and they took over Bengal and they ruled Bengal for the next 2 centuries. Sikandar Shah's 3-decade-long rule was marked by ruthless brutalities again on Hindus, and the crowning glory of his reign was the construction of the Adina Masjid in present-day Pandua area of Bengal. It was, in fact, the Adinath Mandir, which was a great mandir dedicated to Bhagwan Shiva and Bhagwan Vishnu also. The gradual absorption of Bengal into the Mughal Empire from the middle of the 2nd decade of the 16th century, during the reign of Babur, then again brought untold miseries to Bengali Hindus. And at this time, a new element was introduced, which is the persecution or the targeting of Bengali Hindu women. The Mughals specifically started targeting Bengali Hindu women, abducting them, forcing them to convert, raping them, forcing them to convert to Islam, and either marrying them off to old men, or sending them off to brothels. This started during the Mughal rule. Despite what the Marxist historians trying to whitewash history say about Mughal rule. Now, especially brutal was the reign of Sultan Suleiman Khan Karani, who belonged to the short-lived Pashtun Karani dynasty of Bengal. And he was a bigot who put thousands of Hindus to death as he expanded his kingdom, enslaved women, and had his soldiers rape and forcibly convert Hindu women to Islam. Rape became an instrument of state policy under the Mughals. After the defeat of the last Sultan of the Karani dynasty, Mughal rule was once again firmly established in Bengal. The rule of the reign of Aurangzeb was particularly bad for Hindus again of Bengal, not only of Bengal also, but also of the rest of the subcontinent. And Aurangzeb, being an Islamist despot, imposed very harsh taxes on Hindus and limited the personal freedom of personal and religious freedom of Hindus. The decline of the Mughals, which saw the rise of the Nawabs of Bengal since 1717, started with Murshid Quli Khan in Bengal, and they were as bigoted and as intolerant of their predecessors, and the persecution of Hindus continued under their rule. Bengali Hindus got a reprieve from centuries of persecution only in 1757, when Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla was defeated by Robert Clive in the Battle of Plassey. But mention must be made here of the consistent efforts by Marxist and pseudo-liberal historians of independent India to whitewash the bigotry and crimes of Bengal sultans, the Mughals, and then the Nawabs of Bengal on Hindus, and the horrific persecution suffered by Bengali Hindus over the centuries. Though efforts have been made by such historians to paint Muslim rulers as tolerant, syncretic, lovers and patrons of the art, protectors of Hindus, etc., the truth remains that they were radical Islamists who considered it their holy duty to persecute and kill Kafirs and convert non-believers through allurements or by force. This is evident by the steady decline in the number and percentage of Hindus in Bengal and the sharp increase in the number of Muslims. And this decline of the number of Hindus in Bengal, and by Bengal I mean not only West Bengal today but also Bangladesh, is a fact which points to the continuing persecution of Bengali Hindus not only in Bangladesh but also present-day West Bengal. Okay, now coming to the pre-independent India, the persecution or the discrimination against Bengali Hindus continued in the British era Bengal also, but I mean West Bengal and East Bengal. Many historians will tell us that the Muslims were poor peasants who were fed up with the persecution or the atrocities committed by rich Hindu zamindars, and so the Muslim peasantry revolted against the Hindu zamindars. But that is simply trying to whitewash history and distort realities. This is also the same argument is advanced by apologists of Hitler, who say that the Jews were were occupying the top, were controlling the economy and various other businesses in Germany, and so they needed to be persecuted and killed. Similarly, this was a similar argument, a very, very facile argument advanced by many historians who try to justify the persecution of Bengali Hindus in British era Bengal, where the Muslims would attack the Hindus. During the British era, what also happened was the economic persecution of Bengalis. Here, it was both Bengali Hindus and Muslims, but more of Bengali Hindus because the Bengali Hindus were more affluent. So they had to suffer much more than the Bengali Muslims under the British. We talk about the Bengal famines of 1770, in which two-thirds of the people who died were Hindus. Again, 1943, for which Churchill was responsible, in which 3 million perished. Of the 3 million who perished, 1.9 million or nearly 2 million were Bengali Hindus. Muslims, the death toll amongst the Muslims was maybe a little over one third of the total death toll. Bengal was a very prosperous province. It used to contribute to 50% of the Mughal Empire's GDP. And at that time, before the advent of the British, used to contribute to 12% of the world's GDP. When the British ultimately left, they pauperized the entire province, which was known for its shipbuilding and textile. And here again, the Bengali Hindus suffered more than the Bengali Muslims. Cut to now 1946. Tension between the Bengali Hindus and Muslims had been brewing even in British era Bengal. And it was in 1946 that things came to a head with Muhammad Ali Jinnah's call for a direct action day on 16th August of 1946. The direct action day was called to demand a separate homeland for Muslims in northwestern India and eastern India. And Jinnah, while giving the call, had said that he wanted either a divided India or a destroyed India. Now, immediately on his call, his two lieutenants, the then Chief Minister of Bengal, Hussein Shurawardi, who is also known infamously as the Butcher of Bengal, he and Khwaja Nizamuddin, who became the Governor General of Pakistan after Jinnah's death. Both of them organized the riots on the 16th of August, which started on the 16th of August 1946, against Hindus in Calcutta. And there was a huge rally which they had called for in Calcutta, and the call for direct action was given in that rally. Muslims numbering about 1 lakh who had congregated at what is called the Maidan today in Calcutta. They went around various localities, attacking Hindus, attacking Hindu businesses, again targeting Hindu women, massacring Hindus, etc. And the role played by Surawardi in this was especially shameful. And it was a premeditated massacre or pogrom against Bengali Hindus in Calcutta. Because before this call for direct action day, over the 3 months preceding that, Surawardi started recruiting Punjabi Muslims into the Calcutta police as in the lower level constabulary, as assistant sub inspectors, etc., and benching non-Bengali Hindus. At that time, a large number of constables and the lower level police officers were Bihari Hindus or Hindus from Uttar Pradesh or the United Provinces at that time. And they were benched, and the Punjabi Muslims recruited, and they took a lead role in the massacre of Hindus in Calcutta in 1946. Kolkata, by the way, when in 1946, when the anti-Hindu pogrom started against the Hindus, Kolkata's Hindu population was 29.5 lakh, whereas the Muslim population was 10.99 lakh. And still, the Muslims could organize themselves in a very devastating fashion and attack Hindus. And the massacre of Hindus continued for 2 days, 2 full days, before Hindus and Sikhs got together, mainly under the leadership of a person whose name was Gopal Chandra Mukhopadhyay, popularly known as Gopal Patha, because his family used to run a meat shop. They got organized and they started the pushback and hitting back, resisting the attacks by Muslims on Bengali Hindus. Ultimately, it was a few Muslim League leaders who came to Gopal Mukhopadhyay and beseeched him to stop the violence and sued for peace. Interestingly, one of the leaders who came to Gopal Patha to sue for peace was Mujibur Rahman, who became the liberator of Bangladesh, or Bongo Bandhu. This part about Sheikh Mujib is not very well known. He was a lieutenant of the Butcher of Bengal, Surawardi. Later on, he turned. He professed secularism, but that is another story left for another day. The sequel to the Great Calcutta killings, in which about 4,000 Hindus were killed and over a lakh displaced or rendered homeless, was the Noakhali killings, where, according to some accounts of the papers of that day, Amrita Bazar Patrika says that more than 50,000 Hindus were killed in Noakhali itself, and many towns in Noakhali were completely wiped off. Hindus were completely wiped off from many towns in Noakhali.